Hi everybody, my name's Oliver and welcome to this Future You session on growth mindset. And we'll cover four key topics here. So we'll look at first, what is a mindset? We'll identify two different types, so the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And then finally, we'll look at applying this to real life challenges and seeing how a growth mindset can impact your future actions and the results you're going to get from that. For teachers and facilitators, this session will include a few tasks and a bit of group work as well. So I'll let you know on the video when to pause that and you can carry on playing the video whenever those tasks are done. So first up, this is the task we'd like you to complete individually. So on your own, I'm going to give you 10 questions or 10 sentences or statements. All I need you to do is to give your first response to them. So you can see here there are 10 sentences and on the right hand side there's 4 potential answers. So for each one, just choose strongly agree, agree, disagree or strongly disagree. So obviously if you've got this chart in front of you, please put your answers on there. If not, just take a blank piece of paper, write 1 to 10 and then write your answer for each one. The key thing here is, before you press pause, please choose one of the 4 answers. I'll push you not to maybe sit in the middle with this and just see what comes in terms of your answer. It will usually be your first reaction. That'll be the answer you go with. So don't think about it too much and don't worry if it's the right or wrong answer, as it's only the right answer for you. So if you want to pause the video and take maybe 5 minutes at most to complete this task, and then press play whenever that's done. So the second part of this task is now to find out the number that your answers add up to. So you can see from questions 1 all the way down to 10, each of the 4 potential answers has now got a number. So if you find your answer for that question and write down the number next to it. So for example, if in question 1 you wrote disagree, then put the number 2 down next to it. If for question 2 you wrote strongly agree, then write number 3 down next to it. And you can see that each of the questions or sentences has different numbers. It changes each time. So spend a few minutes working through that, total those up, and then pause that if you need to. But the whole idea of this is that this will give us some clue as to where you are on the scale from having a fixed mindset, which is maybe a lower number, and a more growth mindset, which is a higher number. So pause the video there, total up your score, and then we'll use that for the rest of the session. So now you know whereabouts you are on the scale between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. The whole thing of what we're talking about here is really, it's the way you think about things, the way you interact with the world around you, and the way maybe you decide what actions to take when you come up against challenges or problems in your life. And so the mindset really is all the things that are happening to you, all the experiences that are coming towards you. It's the way that you churn them up inside your brain, and then that will affect the actions that you decide to take later. So that can be made up by a lot of different things. A lot of things can affect your mindset. It could just be maybe your upbringing, the family values, maybe the school's values. It could be the friends around you. It might be the results you've had previous. So maybe you've had really good exam results or exam results maybe you weren't expecting, and that then might affect your mindset and how you'd engage with problems later in life. So that's the sum up of a mindset. And there's a portion of that mindset which you can decide how that will affect your future actions. So some of the things you can't affect. So the way you were brought up, the way that your family have kind of maybe put certain values and morals into the way that you behave, maybe that's a bit more set in place. But actually there's a lot of things that you can affect and decide and move around. And that is what we're talking about here in fixed mindset and growth mindset, as that's a scale. So we really want to move away from a fixed, more to a growth mindset. And if that movement is, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, great. If it's one big leap, if it's 25 steps forward, brilliant. But it's all about constantly realizing you can move this mindset towards the growth. And let's have a look maybe at what those 2 things really mean then. So people that have a growth mindset, they understand that the most basic abilities can often be developed. And usually that is through dedication and hard work and being proactive, taking action on things. And it isn't just a natural ability that will just see you through. People with growth mindset maybe see natural ability or talent or intelligence as just the starting point. That's just the foundation stone. And some people, in theory, will have maybe a further ahead starting point. They might have a stronger foundation in certain topics or subjects. But really, it's the mindset, it's the work, it's the dedication, it's the actions that are really going to get you there. So the first step of taking those actions is to understand that first. So if you believe that if you do 2 hours of revision, that's going to have a positive effect on your exam results, then great, that's that growth mindset. And we're trying to move away from the idea that there's no point doing something because you already think you know the results. Really what we're trying to say is do the work, take the actions, put in the dedication, and you'll see those results down the line. That's the real growth mindset. So the fixed is the opposite. It's the fact that you would think everything is the same, nobody can improve, nothing develops, nothing grows, and therefore that affects your actions. Really, you're thinking then, well, what's the point in me taking any action because I don't believe anything can grow. So this is why it's a mindset first. It's not necessarily the actions first. If you believe that things will develop, then your actions will follow, and it's about taking those steps towards the growth mindset. And this can be applied to pretty much anything. This idea that you can develop things can be applied to subjects or skills or tasks that you want to overcome, challenges that you may be coming up against. It could be used in school, in subjects that you're doing well in, or actually ones that you're struggling in. It could be used in relationships and the way that you engage with people around you as well. But if you believe deep down that things can improve, get better and change, whether that's a big leap or whether that's rapid or over time, then really actually you can apply this to lots of different things. So this is the point where we start thinking about what this actually feels and looks like inside. The idea that a growth mindset starts inside your mind and is inside your head. Actually, that will usually kind of appear, or you'll hear that in terms of the way that you talk to yourself or the language you use inside your head. And this is the first indicator of that mindset. So if you've, for example, come up against a problem or a challenge where you've had an exam result which wasn't the way it was supposed to go, you were supposed to get a certain grade, maybe you fell below that grade, what are you hearing inside your head in response to that? Are you saying things like, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this? That would be an example of fixed mindset. So obviously it's a strong emotional response. And the best thing you can do is quickly move on to the response, which is the growth mindset, which is, maybe I'll try something different, or I can do this. I just need to try something else, or a new strategy, a new technique, or work a bit harder. So what I want to do for this task is, we'll pause the video in a minute, and maybe in pairs, if you can grab a piece of paper, fold it in half or draw a line down the middle. And on each side, I want you to give me examples of phrases you would hear from people with, number one, a fixed mindset. So that's the kind of thing about saying you're not good enough. And then on the other side, give me the phrases that people would use from a growth mindset, so the more positive phrasing. So pause the video, take 5 minutes for that. Hopefully if you can get a group discussion and get some common phrases going. And then after the slides, I'll show you some of the answers that we've put together as well. So here are a few of the things that we've mentioned here. So fixed mindset, you're often likely to hear the things, the first emotional responses to be, I can't do this, what's the point? I'm not clever enough, which is going back to that idea that brains and talent, intelligence, natural ability is just the starting point, but people with a fixed mindset will see that as the start and the end point. Or using words like, this is too hard. So it's almost like ruling yourself out before you've even tried anything else. And then the beauty of it is that really it's about flipping that mindset, trying to use a bit more progressive language, like realizing you can try different strategies, understanding that challenges and problems that you face and overcome are actually points when you learn the most, and understanding that to the point where you can then use that in the future to progress. Things like keep trying, can do this, I'm not going to give up, those are all just positive phrases. And the thing I'd like to question you on here is the phrases on the left, so the fixed mindset phrases. You often say these things to yourself, either internally, it's kind of what you hear from yourself, and we all do this. But I challenge you to ask, would you accept this as somebody else saying it to you? So if your best friend was using this kind of language about you and coming up against challenges, and this was their response about your actions, would you stay that close a friend with that person? Would you value what they're saying to you? Hopefully not. And the idea is that if you wouldn't accept this from somebody else, I hope you wouldn't also accept it from yourself. So it's fine. This is a first emotional response. It usually is, but then it's how quickly can we move to the growth mindset phrase. Let's start putting some of this into action then. So the idea of a growth mindset is the idea that you can come up against challenges and improve and get better next time. But how do you actually do that? What are we supposed to do? Now, a really good method and something that's across what's come from sport and is across business and education is this idea of tiny gains or marginal gains or 1% improvements. And it really is summed up by the question, could you get 1% better? So if you feel like the answer to that is probably yes, then could you ask that question again the next day? Could you get 1% better tomorrow? And the day after that, could you get 1% better? And the idea of the power of tiny gains is that this grows and grows and grows, and over time you'll see a really big increase in the improvements, whatever it is you've set as a target. So could you get 1% better? That's the key question we need to ask ourselves. So this isn't about jumping ahead. This isn't about taking big leaps and doing huge movements in our abilities and talents and results, but it's about putting in the building blocks and taking little steps forward and making those tiny gains. As an incredibly obvious example, this is probably something you do every day. If you've ever moved from A to B, if you've ever gone upstairs or walked in a straight line, the idea of doing that is to get to a goal, and you start in one place and you move forward. Now, usually you don't just take one massive leap. So in this case, you don't tend to just jump and see if you can reach the second floor or the third floor. What you do is you take steps forward, but it's identifying what steps they are. So obviously a little bit more complicated than going up the stairs. Seeing if your goal is to improve an exam result, you have to then put in place those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% improvements that you're going to do that's going to get you to that goal. And this all comes from sports. So marginal gains is a theory which was made popular by a guy called Dave Brailsford. Now, Dave Brailsford was the lead of the British cycling team. He took over in 1997. And he led them to a period of international dominance and being one of the most successful sports teams in the world. Now, he did that on this idea of marginal gains because he looked at what makes a successful rider and what would lead to success in a competition. And he said, if we found all those elements, pulled them apart and improved each of them by 1%, now when you put those elements back together, that's going to lead to a major improvement. So he got really into detail with this. So yeah, they did take apart the bike. They looked at the wheels, the pedals, the seat, and they looked at how they could make small 1% improvements on those. But they also did things deeper than that. So they looked at teaching all the riders and the cyclists how to wash their hands. Now, if you have to put a thread through washing your hands to winning the Tour de France, what he was saying was, wash your hands properly, get off all the bacteria, you're much less likely to be ill, you'll miss less days of training, you'll miss less days of competition, you'll be at peak physical fitness, and eventually that is one of the 1% that will add up. They did the things with sleep as well. So they asked all the cyclists to bring in the pillows, and they looked at how they sleep, what positions they would normally take when they're asleep, and they looked at if the pillow actually matches that or is worse for that. They got them the right pillows, the right bedding, the right mattresses, so their sleep would improve by 1%. And obviously, coupled with a lot of other things, it all adds up to a big improvement. So this is a method that's been applied across the world in different industries now, right from sport to different sports to business and a lot in education, and also how people improve and learn and make steps towards goals that they've set for themselves. So we're going to use this method now, hopefully. So this is the main task here. We're going to try and use this marginal gains theory to come up against this challenge of improving an exam result. So how would you actually take the actions or make the 1% improvements, which might mean that an exam result you get in your mocks, for example, would then lead to a big improvement in your final exam later. And this is on top of the idea that we're doing, classwork and we're doing lots of revision and we're regularly reading over notes and things. But what are the 1% you could do? So I want you in groups, trying to keep it relatively small so everyone can contribute, about 3s and 4s ideally. Grab a big piece of paper, and then I want you to write down as many of these 1% improvements you could take to improve an exam result. And here are some topics to think about. So you might want to maybe group your ideas around these different topics, so you'll have your own ideas. So think about what could you do in class. So every day, what 1% improvements could you be doing when you're in class and learning in your subjects? Think about your home environment. What improvements could you make there? Whether or not you have a full room, an office to work in, or whether you've just got somewhere in a corner of a room which you can use regularly. Think about your friends and how they could either help or detract from what you're trying to do. Think about distractions such as games and phones and screens and things like that. How would you control that? And then how would you improve your revision as well? So those are some topics. Try and take about 10 minutes for this and spend a lot of time really getting into the details. And if you put one idea down, try and break that one down as well into 1%. And hopefully at the end of that, if we can have a group sum up as well, and we'll get some good ideas to challenge this, how would you improve an exam result? So you can pause the video here and press play whenever you feel like you're ready to come back together. Okay, so hopefully you've got some good ideas together. Now, the real trick of this is that it's personal to you and how you want to move forward. Unfortunately, there's no list I can give everybody which will lead to success in this challenge. But really what you're trying to do is make enough improvements that suit you the best and really can help you move forward. So here are some ideas. They might match what you've already put down, or they might be different. You might want to add to it. And what we've said really is that a lot of it is about environment. Could you maybe find a quiet space? If you can use a whole room in your house, brilliant, but most people won't be able to. So it might be a case of a 1% improvement would be to just mention to family or home, the people that you're living with, that you are going to be revising for the next hour, or you might need some quiet for the next 30 minutes. If they can't maybe find the space, at least they can make it a bit quieter. It's as much as changing the light bulb to make things a bit brighter so you can see things, making your environment, get a new kind of pen to use, all those types of things are just little things which will make small improvements. If you're revising or if you're in class, challenge yourself to answer one more question. Just take that 1% step forward. Even if you don't have time to answer a question, maybe just read the next question before you close your book, just to help you settle into your brain, and the next time you come to it, you're kind of ready. Use things like a Pomodoro timer, which is apps, software, you can get it on everything. I use it on my work computer as well, which builds in breaks for you. So it's the idea that you can't spend too much time concentrating. Work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and it gives you alarms and buzzers, tells you when to take a break and when to come back. In terms of how you work, this one will be the most personal. Find the right music to listen to, find the right environment, create the right sense of work that you're trying to create. Some people will need high energy music, maybe they'll need things they've heard before so they can just kind of drift off into their work. I'm the absolute opposite. I need it very low key, very chilled. I don't need any lyrics because that will take my mind out of it as well. So that for me is the 1% improvements. Those are some of the things that I do to make sure that I'm achieving what I want to achieve when I'm trying to learn the best. And as a final task, and this is to give some good examples of people that are well known which show great growth mindset, come from different backgrounds and have different ideas about the world, but all share this idea of a growth mindset. We're giving you 4 examples here. So 4 famous people: Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy, Ed Sheeran, Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling. And what I want you to do is look at their history, their story, which is in the blue boxes. Have a read through, identify that those are growth mindsets and what they've overcome, the challenges they've taken and how they've still moved forward. And then have a think about which one is which. As I'll give you a few minutes to do this, either do it as a full class, get the ideas together, or do it as a group and come together depending on how much time you've got. But pause the video here, and on the next slide, I'll give you the answers to these. So number 1 is J.K. Rowling, second is Oprah Winfrey, third is Colonel Sanders. You'll recognise that face now. And then 4 is Ed Sheeran. So they're all just really clear examples of the idea that maybe not everybody just has a certain path in life, and it's dependent on what you were born with or natural ability. The trick is to make the most of what you've got and keep improving and keep taking steps forward there. So as you leave this session, hopefully you understand what a growth mindset is, and hopefully you understand that really it's not something that everybody has or doesn't have. It's a case of taking steps towards having a growth mindset and moving along that scale in anything you do. So here are some examples where you might be able to apply this in the future in terms of the revision, which I've already spoken about, any group work you do, any projects you kind of head up or you're a part of, friends, family, those types of relationships, developing skills, and then crucially moving towards careers and taking on work in the future. That's when you'll see some of these methods really come to the fore. And this comes across now, so right from the day one. Can you ask yourself, no matter what challenge or what situation you're in, could you get 1% better? And then what is that 1%?